Hi friends, and welcome back to the Cantina Chatter podcast. In this episode, we will be continuing our look at the Hasbro Star Wars 30th Anniversary Collection, which was released back in 2007 as part of the Modern Star Wars Toy Line Retrospective series. So this is part 2 out of our 4-part showcase on the 30th Anniversary Collection. In the last episode, we focused on most of the basic figures that were released throughout the 30th Anniversary Collection. In this episode, we're going to finish looking at the basic figures, and then in part 3, we're going to get into everything else that was part of the 30th line, including the Order 66 packs, the comic packs, battle packs, multi-packs, evolutions, exclusives, vehicles. Gosh, this was such a huge, expansive toy line, the likes of which we just don't see anymore. So I'm really excited to talk about it. Of course, Dan Curto is back, and we're going to focus on this second part, looking at all of those different assortments in this line. And then in part 4 of this look at 30th anniversary, we're going to focus on the Saga Legends line, a lot of which were voted by fans and released later on in the 30th anniversary collection's run. So stay tuned for that. Hope you're doing well. Hope that you enjoyed our previous episode. And I also want to thank everybody for your kind comments regarding my health. I'm very glad to be on the mend. Things look great. And now I am shifting my focus on not only healing, but a sense of renewal that I now have and how I want to use that and make the most out of my time. So that's an ongoing thing for me. I'll continue to assess and reflect and consider. But without further ado, let's go ahead and have Mr. Curto join us, and we'll continue our focus on the 30th Anniversary Collection. So let's see here. So wave 7.5. So this is a repaint wave, right? So this is something they did every now and then with the various lines over the years. Oftentimes the last wave of a given line would be like a repaint type wave. Same thing here. This is what this is intended to be. So when you'd see this at the end of the year. So for this one, it's Darth Vader hologram, Clone Trooper 7th Legion, Clone Trooper Hawkbat Battalion, R2B1 Astromech Droid, Naboo Soldier, Rebel Vanguard Trooper from Battlefront, and then Pax Bonkik, the Rhodian pod racer mechanic.
I have a story on this wave. I helped design this wave.
Love it.
This particular wave was supposed to be The Force Unleashed, but The Force Unleashed video game was delayed. So in 2007, Easter weekend, I was trading emails back and forth with Hasbro, trying to come up with 7 figures to fill the wave. And the rules were, we can't come up with characters that we're already going to do. So, of course, initially I didn't know who any of those were. We can't come up with any figure that uses parts that we're going to use somewhere else. So one of the suggestions that I had come up with was an Obi-Wan Kenobi with his hood, right? And they said, well, we can't do that because we're going to be making Obi-Wan Kenobi next year. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I can't tell anybody that, but cool. And what we had done is we had gone back through the Hasbro Q&A, and a lot of figures that were suggested were brought back. So Darth Vader hologram was one of those. Initially, it was going to be a different body, but the one that we have, it still works really well. The R2B1 was a figure that was really, really hard to find from the episode 1 days. So bringing him back and then modern sculpting was a no-brainer. The Naboo soldier had been released in a different color scheme. So again, this was something that was suggested. I suggested releasing the 7th Legion, what became known as the 7th Legion Trooper, because that particular deco was originally only available as like a statue. Okay. And they said, okay. And I said, you had like 4 of those back when you did this in Revenge of the Sith, and you've done the green one, the blue one, the yellow one, whatever it was. And I said, but you haven't done this one. They're like, okay, well, we'll do that one. So they did that. They wanted to do another clone trooper. So they suggested the Hawkbat, what became known as the Hawkbat trooper, because that would be an easy repaint.
Mm-hmm.
And then they really, really, really wanted to do something with Greedo. And I, back in 2000, created a fan fiction story of a Rhodian Jedi named Badu Bak. That if you're into customizing and you know me from my Ferg days, that you probably know all about this character. But unfortunately, Greedo's head didn't fit on any body because the ball was so big. The ball and socket joint on Greedo's head, the ball and socket joint was so big that his head didn't fit on any of the Jedi bodies that they had made. So they couldn't do that. And I was like, damn it. So they were like, well, we look through the films and we see Greedo, obviously, and then we see other Rhodians in not only the Cantina, but in Docking Bay 94 and later on in Jabba's palace, but they all look the same.
Right.
They all have the same outfit.
Yeah, it's weird.
I said, there is another Rhodian in the background in episode 1. Now, he doesn't look like Greedo. Outfit is completely wrong.
Yeah.
But if you gave him the vest of this other character, it might work. And they're like, oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, we'll do that. And then they found that I think StarWars.com used to have a fan, not fan fiction, but a fan tells the story type of thing, where someone had given this character the name Pax Bonkik. There was another guy, Trax Bonkik, too. So you had to buy 2 of them if you wanted the whole background on it. So that was,
I see.
And then the Rebel Vanguard Trooper, I laugh whenever I see this because I made Hasbro Kit Bash a figure. I have played the Battlefront video game, and this was a character from that. And coincidentally, I didn't know this at the time because that was part of the discussion. They were working on a Battlefront figure multi-pack.
Uh-huh.
I think it didn't come out until the Legacy Collection. So this would be one of the first ones from that.
Okay.
And there were a lot of other figures suggested. Some of them eventually got made. Some of them didn't. But this was my Easter weekend in 2007. Was emailing back and forth with Daryl DePriest and some other people on the Hasbro design team. They're like, do you think we could do this? Absolutely. And then I mentioned before Celebration, they had it that quickly. They had the paint masters to show off, the prototypes. And I was blown away because nobody else knew about this. I mean, I wasn't allowed to even talk about it, even go on. And here I am telling a website where I'm revealing Hasbro secrets and stuff, and I'm just not doing that, right? So that's interesting dynamic. But I see these figures for the very first time, and the deco on Pax Bonkik was amazing on his face, on the way they painted that.
Yeah.
I said, they'll never do this in production. It'll never be this good. But it was. It really was. It was so good.
It is good. The gradient, right? Of the colors, just
right. Yes.
remarkable.
And anyway, so that's the story of how this wave. I know I've told this many times if you've listened to me on various shows, but that's the story how this particular wave came to be and why. Funny side note: the Force Unleashed game got delayed a second time, but they decided they're not going to do that again. They just released the figures anyway.
Yeah, I remember that. But no, that's a great story. It's, great to hear. Even if I've heard it before, it's still awesome to hear. It's you just think about how incredible that sounds. To spend an Easter weekend. I don't even remember what I did Easter week in 2007. I don't even remember what I did last year. Come to think of it, barely. But yeah, that's great. Great memories there for sure. And what would you say is the standout from this wave?
Well, I really like the Rebel Vanguard Trooper again because of the way not only concept behind it and how it was done, but also I really like the execution of it too. I mean, I think he works really well, but I also really love the Pax Bond kick figure. Like I was saying, the deco on that just blew me away when I first saw it.
Yeah.
So kind of torn.
That's a cool one too. There, I mean, but it's just all around. It is a solid wave, even if it was like a last minute thing. Like even the Hawkbat Battalion Trooper from Clone Wars. That's such a unique with the mud and the poncho and missing the stripe. Very faithful to the animated look.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is before the 3D Clone Wars, so this particular Clone Wars show was had a lot of fans. Not only myself, but a lot of fans on the Hasbro team. So they were really excited to bring out another character from that show.
Yeah, it's great.
And it was such an easy thing to do, really. I mean, you had plenty of material from all the Jedi robes.
Yeah, that's true because it is very similar color. All right, so let's look at the next wave. So this is Wave 8. This is Attack of the Clones. And Dan, what I'm kind of thinking is maybe we need to even break up the saga, the 30th anniversary collection, just given how many other categories we still have to look at for the other assortments.
I know, right? Hey, it was a big year. It might require multiple shows.
It may require multiple shows. All right, so let's look at Wave 8. So Attack of the Clones. Here we have Clone Trooper in training fatigues, Padme Amidala, Naboo Senator, Jango Fett, Bounty Hunter, Volvith Mon, Jedi Master, Destroyer Droid, and McQuarrie Signature Series for this wave is the Rebel Trooper.
Yeah, which has a big clam on his head.
I always thought it looked like a toilet.
Yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah, he's sticking his head out of the toilet.
I mean, this was a mixed wave for me. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the training fatigues clone. I think that was a great idea. The execution didn't really work, and
I agree.
Pose, the sculpting is pre-posed and not so great articulation. But I mean, for what it is, I think it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, good likeness, but I do agree. Yeah, the snap-on armor, it is a little wonky.
Yeah. Padme's outfit. I mean, this is the dinner scene.
Right.
It looks phenomenal. They haven't done all of Padme's outfits from the prequel trilogy, but they've done quite a few, and a lot of times they really knock it out of the park. Now you can't pose her at all, so she's very statuesque. That doesn't sound right, but she's just statue.
Yes.
But they did a good job of it, really.
Yeah, they did. I like the way that they textured her dress, just like the material and everything. Very nicely sculpted.
Yes. And then the destroyer droid is a destroyer droid. It's not, to me, super exciting, but I do like the fact that he comes with half the shield.
Yes.
Which means, of course, you have to buy another one to complete the shield.
You gotta buy two. And it's funny, I still remember finding this at Target. I was visiting my mom, my parents, and I went to Target with my mother, and I found it on the shelf for the first time, buying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jango Fett also with removable armor, kind of cool. I do dig it, and this is sort of his Camino casual look, if you will, when Obi-Wan first meets him. So he's sort of like dressing down for being back home type of thing.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of cool, and I don't believe they've ever released him with a poncho before.
Not before this, no.
Yeah. So that was, I don't know. I kind of like this one. Not my favorite. You can probably tell, process of elimination. My favorite in this one is Volvith Mon.
Yes.
The Jedi Master.
I agree with you.
What I love about this character is, again, another character from the Clone Wars micro series, but this is a character that was the winner of a contest that I think it was Chef Boyardee had on their ravioli cans, and fans could vote out of 3 aliens that would be made into one of the upcoming episodes. Now they all got made into the episode eventually, but Wolfif Mon was the winner, and he was added into like season one of the final episodes, as like a quick cameo type thing.
Right.
And although he won, and that was really cool, he kind of got screwed because the other two got a much bigger and better storyline with Palpatine.
Right. Yeah.
So Roran Karab and I don't remember the other guy's name, the Tal's Jedi, but
Yeah.
he was made in Saga Collection, which is basically they took Muftak and gave him a suit.
Exactly. And big boots.
Yes. But it's just very cool because they completed that trio of figures, and I remember when this happened because I was very closely following that show as it was released. I thought that was really cool how they just kind of had fans input into the show, and now here we are, whatever 4 years later at this time, and now all three of them were made into action figures.
Yeah, and it's especially unique too because you got to think about how this was a species from the Cantina, right? Like Lax Sivrak, and that was replaced, right?
Yes.
Lucas replaced it in special edition.
Yes. It's so weird.
But no, it's great, and I really like the card because it does use the Lax Sivrak like mask on there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so cool. Super neat. Yeah, and it's just a great figure. I would agree that is a standout for me as well from this wave. And what's interesting too is that Hasbro has coming out pretty soon, I believe, the Clone Wars micro series wave for the vintage collection. And so they already have the logo. If they wanted to bring back some of these micro series figures, they already have like the template in which to do that on TVC.
Right. Oh, that would be, I dig it when they do that, or when they have realistic interpretations of animated figures, because they had a line of Clone Wars. I'm sure you talked about this before, but they had a line of Clone Wars figures that were ripped right out of the screen based on those designs, but they were, again, sort of statuesque, limited articulation, and posability figures.
Yeah.
Seeing them brought into a realistic line, it was kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like that.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Really,
and we don't see too much of that, really.
No, not at all. We don't. We need to see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this takes us into 2008 Wave 1. There were 2 waves in 2008. First one is Revenge of the Sith. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Commander Greek, Kashyyyk Trooper, Tri-Droid, 2-1B Surgical Droid, Poe Nudo, and Mustafar Panning Droid.
Right. Now this, they stopped with the coins at this point, and they included the stands that were part of Saga Collection, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And they each have their own film logo on it and their names on it and everything. So the coins are gone. They brought the stands back. But this particular wave, I really enjoyed this one. The first time I saw it was at Dallas Fan Days, Star Wars Fan Days in Dallas. Yeah, I can speak. And they had them on display. Hasbro came out to that year, and they had them on display in a case. And somebody stole Commander Gree.
Oh, wow.
When they were breaking it down. So someone out there has the prototype for Commander Gree, and you suck for stealing.
Wild.
But that Commander Gree, I think, was fantastic. And you mentioned Darth Vader, and it should be pointed out that this was Mustafar. This is Anakin when he was technically Darth Vader, but he was in his Anakin outfit. Uh-huh. And Obi-Wan and Anakin, not only are they standalone figures by themselves, but you take it with the droid, and they can recreate the whole battle where one's standing on the droid and the other standing on the platform, because both of those are all included. I mean, how cool is that? It's
great. I actually have those on my shelf because I just love that, how they did that back then. I still have them on display.
Yeah, it just kind of shows like this. Probably, if it was released in the previous year, they might have been like as an extra accessory, right?
Right.
But instead they released it separately, and it was good. They did it. I just thought that was really cool, and I really love the world building that sometimes Hasbro puts into all this stuff, kind of like we've
Yeah,
been saying all along. It's really nice.
for sure. And I still think this is probably their best, like Obi-Wan, like for Revenge of the Sith. I think it still holds up, and
Mm-hmm.
any of the ones previous to this, didn't do. And I think anything since then is basically this figure, like, repainted. And I think this was also one of the first uses of ball jointed hips on these figures.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, super, super great. You got to have both of those. And let's see what else. So, Commander Gree, you mentioned, finally a proper Commander Gree, because they did do Commander Gree, I believe, I think it was a Saga collection, but it was just like a repaint, right, of the super articulated
Yes.
Stormtrooper.
Yep. Yep. So this was definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, super. Yeah, way better. Like, I'm just looking at the comparison here. Like, yeah, it's no contest. It was a hugely improved over the shortcut that they tried earlier on.
Right.
Let's see, a Kashyyyk
Yeah, they didn't
Trooper.
quite get the deco down on that initial.
Yeah, that's true. The deco isn't completely there. Kashyyyk Trooper was another one they had taken the shortcut on by just repainting the Scout Trooper
Yep.
in the previous line. So it's nice that this one finally got its all new sculpt. It's a great figure. It's a little short, right? But it's still a great figure.
He's a little short for for a clone trooper, but still, it's pretty solid, and the design is really good. And I like the removable helmets that they included. I see nowadays they're doing a lot of like alternate heads, so you can
Right.
swap them out. I kind of like that idea too, but there's something fun about having the helmet, you can put on and off the characters. And for the clones, it was basically the same head, obviously, that they use for most of the different clone trooper figures, regardless of how they, which character it was.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah. And then, 2-1B. This was not the 2-1B we knew from The Empire Strikes Back. This was the one from Episode 3,
Yeah.
and still pretty solid.
Yeah, very solid. Very solid. Yeah, and this one I think also had like the ball jointed hips and just a great sculpt, great paint. Probably a really unique one for this was the Tri-Droid, huh? So this was like something that was very compact when you saw it in the packaging, but then when you pulled it out, it was very big.
It really is. It really is. I like this one. I mean, I know some people maybe had problems getting him to stand up. I never had that problem. I do like that he comes with a base that he doesn't actually need. But yeah, once he's up on all threes, because 3 legs, he towers over pretty much everybody.
Right. Yeah, he's a Tri-Droid. He's got 3 legs. Yeah, it's a really cool figure. I think I have like 3 of them. And then Poe Nudo, a separatist. So we did get separatists sprinkled in throughout those years, and this was the one they did for this line, Poe Nudo.
Yeah, and weird looking aliens are always great, always a welcome addition. Because of the robes, he cannot move his legs, but for what it is and what this character is, I thought this was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think those figures were fantastic. I love that they did those separatists. Took a while to get all of them, but it's cool that they exist.
Right. And I tell you, I'm having a hard time thinking what's my favorite of this line.
Yeah, that's
I thought this was really solid wave.
It is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards Obi-Wan, but he doesn't really bring anything new to the table the way that the Tri-Droid or even 2-1B.
I'm also kind of leaning towards Mustafar panning droid just because how obscure that is, and it goes and ties back to the lava miner from the very beginning of this line.
Right, that's true.
Right, so we're back on Mustafar, and I'm kind of digging that aspect of it. But I do love that Tri-Droid. Oh man, this is so hard.
It is. It's such a great wave. Such a great line. But yeah, I think I'd go with either of those two. Either of those two would do it for me.
let's go with Tridroid. We were talking a lot about him, so let's say he's
All
good.
right. We'll go with Tridroid. All right, and that'll take us to the very last wave in the main line for 30th Anniversary Collection. This is finally that Force Unleashed line that you were talking about, finally made its way to retail. And I think it was like in spring 2008, right? Because I remember I had just moved to California when I had started finding this at the store.
Yes, and usually there's a thing called last wave syndrome, where the last wave of a line is almost impossible to find at retail, and sometimes it actually sort of gets canceled.
Right.
But I had no problems finding this at all.
Yeah, I saw it a couple of times as well.
And they were clearing out shelf space to make room for Legacy Collection and Clone Wars, which would happen over the summer. So that's why we started seeing this carry over into 2008. But yeah, I thought this. We got to see these at Toy Fair in 2007, and then it finally came out in 2008. But I mean, every figure in here is right off the video game, and really was well done.
Oh, for sure. We have Imperial Evo Trooper, Imperial Jump Trooper, Maris Brood, Darth Vader Battle Damage, Rom Coda, Shadow Guard, and Juno Eclipse.
Now, Juno Eclipse was another one that got pre-released, sort of a pre-paint, like the Airborne Trooper we mentioned before, because her entire figure was repainted and re-released in a comic pack as Dina Shan.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know that at the time, but there have been a couple of variations in this as well. Maris Brood had 2 different skin tones, and Juno Eclipse had 2 different hairstyles. So they resculpted the head completely and then re-released it. So that sometimes when you're dealing with concept art, and this is true in video games and movies and whatnot, you are working with the toy line a year and a half before the film comes out or the game comes out, and there's time to change the character's look. Whereas in the figure, it's like, well, we already are so far down the road, we can't change that. So you'll have things like skin tone differences or costume differences. If you think back to like the original figures for some of the characters in episode 1, they didn't quite match what was seen on screen because the digital files were changed before the film came out. And then later on, we get like a different Foden bead because that's how he looked, not the way they originally made him, for example.
Right.
So this is a case here where some of the designs don't quite match up to what we saw in the game, but they all look great.
Yeah, no, they all look great. That's a cool name too, Juno Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Maris Brood, she's the one that had the variant, right? There was like 2 paint versions of her.
Yep. And she in the game, she's if I remember right, she's the Padawan of Shakti.
Yes.
On Felucia?
Felucia.
Yeah. And this to me, I have somewhere in my collection, I have a storage tote with just all of the Force Unleashed figures that they had made, because they made a lot more after this.
Right.
In battle packs and in single releases or comic packs or whatever it was. And they made quite a few.
Yeah.
I really dug this game. I did play this game. I did play the second game. I didn't like the second game as much as the first game.
True.
But there was so many possibilities on here, and this doesn't even have Starkiller in it. And this wave doesn't have Starkiller.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about
that. It was like a big secret, and he was part of the Evolution set, which we'll get to at some point.
Yeah, for sure. And this Maris Brood, she's got like these unique baton lightsabers. No other character that I can think of has sabers like these.
Right, not that I'm aware. I mean, they're not very practical, really, because you could chop your arm off, but that just shows how skilled she was.
Exactly. Which of those 2 do you like better? Do you like them more? They're both like dark side versions, right? We never got the light side version, but which of these 2 versions would you say is superior?
Right. I kind of like the pale version, because that was more, if I remember right, she was very much dark side in the game when you first met her as Starkiller. You play Starkiller in the game, and then later on you meet her again, and she seems to be more like reformed, and she kind of helps Starkiller along.
Huh.
This is if I remember right, but
Yeah,
I like
remember.
the paler version. I think the paler version is a unique look for her.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both cool, though. I think if you have one, you can't
Right.
go wrong either version. But yeah, I don't remember I played it too. I love the game. I just don't. It's been, gosh, so long. 2008. I can't even. Oh man, it'd be neat to sit through it again. I guess if I found the time someday. Yeah.
I'm looking at the gallery page right now, and I am completely wrong. It wasn't Juno Eclipse who had her hair changed. It was Dina Shan who had her hair changed.
Okay.
They re-released Dina Shan with like a bun in the back of her head. Why? I don't know, but they did.
Yeah, these two troopers are great too. The Jump Trooper, the Evo Trooper. Just unique designs from the game. Those hadn't existed before that.
No, and if I remember correctly, these were repacked or repainted and released in multi-packs in later years.
Yes, that is true. Ram Kodo was an interesting one too. The way he puts his lightsaber in the sheath on his back, he's very samurai-looking Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to work out too well for him the way they executed it on the figure.
No, I mean, this is one of those things with, some of the lightsabers used to have, or still do, some of them have removable blades. And I think in this particular case, that would have made more sense.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. And then later on in the game, he loses his eyesight. So it would have been an interesting alternate head if they had gone that route.
That is true. And then, I guess the only other one in this wave is Darth Vader Battle Damaged. And for me, at the time, I thought this was great. Like, we had never seen a figure like this where it was Darth Vader and with all these removable parts, you could reenact the game. And it's interesting because I think the card art is great on this figure, but it doesn't look anything like the actual figure.
Yeah, true. Again, concept art, real figure sometimes varies. But, I mean, to me, this is easily my favorite figure in the wave just because of how messed up this guy is.
Yeah.
And just, when I remember at Toy Fair seeing this for the first time, coming at like the way they have it, it's, if you've been to Toy Fair, they have everything kind of like sequestered off in different areas, and then you come around the corner and you're looking at the display, and this one just jumped right out at me. I'm like, holy cow, what's going on here? I have no idea what the game is about at the time. But this was a fun one, and the cape is even all messed up too. It's got holes in it, and it's all tattered and torn. Yeah, this was a fun one. This was definitely. You could tell, even though it maybe didn't match the final version, this was definitely a fun one.
It was, and I can still I remember back, when those images came out from Toy Fair and you saw these, and yeah, good times. I'm trying to think of. I think I would agree with you. I think the Darth Vader is a lot of fun. It was, the whole wave is solid. I know we didn't even touch on the Shadow Guard, which is also a pretty cool figure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a repaint of the Emperor's Royal Guard that had come out, but I mean, that's what you would expect it to be.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that covers the main line.
There were only 6 figures in the vintage line, so if you want to include those and cut a break, that sounds good to me.
Okay, let's do that.
Because I think these 6 figures were pretty well done.
Yeah, let's talk about those. You're right. There are only 6 of them in the vintage, and I think these were still labeled as the Saga collection, weren't they? Like the sticker that was on there.
Yes. So there's a reason for that, and I mentioned it at the beginning of this show. The 30th anniversary collection logo is terrible because it's square and it's on an angle, and it doesn't really work when you're trying to make a vintage style Kenner card back. It's a very horizontal logo. So the design team said, we're just going to use the Saga collection logo instead. And I know this because I bugged them about it. I'm like, why is this Saga collection? That was last year. He's like, yeah, but the logos, you got to understand design work. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, so when I was documenting the action figure line, I came up with the VTAC, I would call it. So there was VOTC, there's VTSC, and I would say VTAC, but really that's wrong.
Yeah.
So apologies for the confusion, people that pay attention to stuff like this, and if you don't, then never mind.
Yeah, this is really a neat thing that they continue doing, right? Because the modern vintage started in with the original trilogy collection, right? We had the VOTC, it continued on in the Saga collection, then the following year here, I think these came out around fall, if I remember correctly. We got the another wave of 6 more figures. So we have Bosk, Han Solo in Hoth outfit, IG-88, Luke Skywalker in Bespin fatigues, Princess Leia in combat poncho, and Imperial Stormtrooper Hoth battle gear.
Yes, otherwise known as Snowtrooper, otherwise known as the figure that was repainted and re-released so many times I can't even keep track.
Yes.
I literally think they released this figure about 50 times in different formats and little dirt splashes here, little cleanup here, whatever. But it's it was such a great figure, the Snowtrooper. Whereas like Han Solo in Hoth outfit, I think that got a couple of re-releases later on. Luke Skywalker Bespin fatigues got completely replaced because it wasn't all that great. And Leia in combat poncho, I think they just did a new version of her not that long ago.
Right.
But Bosk and IG-8 are outstanding.
Yeah, I think to this day those are still like the definitive versions they've come out with so far, both of those.
Yeah, and I think that they were re-released. Oh,
they were
re-released in that battle game. What was that line? That was the Shadows of the Dark Side.
Shadows of the Dark Side. Yeah.
And they had all the bounty hunters except for like one. I remember that was made up of a lot of bounty hunters.
Yeah, that. Yeah, they were definitely in there. But no, those were cool. And IG-88, this is one that they could, if the current IG-11 is any metric to go off of, they could certainly go back and re-engineer this one, make it even better. Right. But for the time, it was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Oh, I would say this is one of the most outstanding figures that they've done, especially of this character. But they really did do a great job with him.
Yeah, they did. And Bosk is great, like you said. The costume may be a little bit light in the color, I felt like, but very banana yellow, but still a great figure, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for bounty hunters, and I always, as a kid, even with the original Kenner, I always liked the character of Bosk. I always thought he was pretty unique, and what was his story? He's just growling at the Imperials and stuff like that. That was all he did. But
right.
And we've seen him in the Clone Wars, of course, and then he spoke, which was weird. But this figure I thought was great. And I really like the way that they sculpted his face and included all of the accessories of his outfit as add-ons, like the collar, the straps around his legs. They weren't sculpted on this time around, which kind of led me to believe that they might use this body for something else later down the road, but they never did.
Right. Yeah, they never did. Such a great figure. Other than that, Luke, Bespin fatigues. We did get an updated one after this in the vintage collection. Mm-hmm. Not too long after, but at the time, 2007, this was the best version of Bespin Luke you could get.
Yeah, I think they used this body for was it Jason Solo in the Legacy collection? I think this was the body they used as the basis for that. So it's not like it had gone to waste, but they just decided to improve it when vintage collections started up.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. Another thing to mention, this was also part of the Ultimate Galactic Hunt, where you could send away little stickers, and you could send away for the coins for these characters to include in your album.
Yeah, that's true.
And not only 6, but you could also get the exclusive, at the time, coin that was given out at Toy Fair. So there was a Toy Fair coin that came with its own special little box that was given away to attendees and press, like myself at the time. But the coin itself was then available inside this special kit as well.
Right. So, yeah, that was a neat thing. I still remember sending off for that little box and getting it in, and had the coins in there. I was like, oh, cool, I can add these into my album.
Exactly.
And and the only other one, I guess, is Leia in her combat poncho, Endor Leia, which, like you said, they just repurposed this sculpt last year for TVC. They gave her a new head, new poncho, but otherwise it's basically the same figure, which was a little frustrating. But at the time she wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the new one. I think that the poncho is pretty cool. I just the other day I got off Walmart.com. I got the Luke Skywalker Endor poncho, and I don't like that one because his helmet is stuck on.
Oh, really? So for me, it's the opposite. Like I kind of loathe this figure, this Leia, because the wrists. That's a big hindrance for getting her on the speeder bike. But Luke, I really like. I feel like the helmet for me isn't like a huge thing because we have other Lukes without the helmet, and he's got a very articulated body, and I think the upgrades really work. So for me, it's the opposite.
Well, it's also true, and I think somebody had pointed this out somewhere. It's true to the Kenner release because that helmet didn't come off back in 85, 84, whenever that came out.
Yeah.
So I get it.
That is true. So perhaps the last thing we should touch on, Dan, for this episode, this portion of Saga or 30th Anniversary Collection, is the Ultimate Galactic Hunt variations of some of these figures.
Oh yes, yeah. So these were chase figures because people like those, I guess. I did. I collected them all. And instead of the silver coins, they were gold coins. And the logo was gold as well. So a nice reflective. And I don't remember like what the case ratio was, but they were not really hard to find. Because I remember seeing all of them at retail at one point or another. But they were kind of fun to collect.
Yeah. So Hasbro had been doing Ultimate Galactic Hunt the year prior, right? And they were doing it. It was basically the little pack-in figurines that were silver.
The little chess pieces.
Exactly, the little chess pieces. And this time it's the coins. Now they were golds, and only certain characters were released in chase versions. And I'll just go down the list really quick. So, Galactic Marine R2D2. Mace Windu, Airborne Trooper, McQuarrie, Stormtrooper, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Yavin, Biggs Darklighter, Rebel Pilot, McQuarrie, Concept Boba Fett, Darth Vader, Sith Lord, McQuarrie, Concept Chewbacca, and Boba Fett animated debut. All of those could be obtained in these chase variant iterations.
Yes, those were figures from the first 3 waves of 2007. So that would be spring release, and then you'd they didn't do any more after that,
right?
Which was good.
All right, so yeah, I think this is a good place to pause our discussion on the 30th anniversary line, and when we come back, we will talk about comic packs, about Order 66 sets, about battle packs, multi-packs, evolutions, exclusives, vehicles, and roleplay. It was such a huge line, crazy time in the golden age where they were just pumping things out left and right. So we'll definitely break it up, and we'll also follow up with an episode on Saga Legends for 30th anniversary as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm happy to come back anytime. I really love talking Star Wars, obviously. Just a quick rundown of what we determined was our favorite figures in each wave and potential re-releases. The Airborne Trooper from Wave 1, Concept Boba Fett, the Jawa and the Lindroid, Hermie Odal, Han Solo with the Torture Rack, Yoda with Kaibuck, but really Kaibuck with Yoda. I'm out of order here. The Rebel Vanguard Trooper, Volfif Mon, Anakin Skywalker Jedi Spirit, the Tri-Droid, and Darth Vader Battle Damage.
Nice. That's a great list right there.
I think so. I think those figures were phenomenal, and I think some of them they would stand right in with some of the modern sculpting that they have nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. Especially those aliens that are just they tend to knock out some of these aliens out of the park the first time around, and
right.
I could certainly see them coming back and fitting in with our modern that was modern too, right? But our more modern collection that we're seeing currently.
Kind of reminds me of like when we were talking Power of the Jedi last time, FX7. I mean, what more would you do with that figure that they didn't do already? That is the definitive version of that particular character. You could re-release that now and it would still hold up.
Exactly. It would
so
still do
sometimes they just get it right off the bat, and there's no need to revisit that character yet.
Totally. All right, my friends, and we'll go ahead and end it right there. So next time, in our next episode, we'll be focusing on all the other multitudes of assortments in this huge toy line. So I'm really excited to get into all of those other assortments, the vehicles, the Order 66 packs, the evolution sets, the vehicles, and all that stuff. And then in part 4, right after that, we'll follow it up with the concluding episode focusing on 30th Anniversary Collection by looking at Saga Legends. So stay tuned for that. And I just want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode and you're enjoying the Modern Toyline Retrospective series and our look at the 30th Anniversary Collection. If you enjoyed the episode, definitely give us a like, give us a review, 5 stars, whatever it is, wherever you're listening to the show. Definitely appreciate your support, and certainly let me know what your favorite item was that we talked about today in this episode. If you're listening on YouTube, leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite item there was. Or hit me up on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Wherever you're online, look up Victoria's Cantina and we'll be glad to talk. As always, no matter where you're tuning in from out in the galaxy, I would like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.